All right, this witness is now under oath, so I have a few questions for the witness before we start with examination. Mr. Huff, this trial has been broadcast, live streamed as well as open to the public. Have you observed any testimony or any part of the trial since it started?
No.
Okay, and have you discussed with anyone else the testimony they've given in trial?
No.
Okay, thanks for your answers. Ms. Beatty, you can inquire on direct.
Sir, could you please state your full name for the jury and then spell your last name?
Craig Dennis Huff, Huff.
Thank you, sir. Where do you live?
I live in Springville, Utah.
And are you familiar with an individual named Chad Daybell?
I am.
How do you know Chad Daybell?
Chad was in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint ward that I was in for a number of years.
Okay. And would you describe yourself more as friends with Mr. Daybell or acquaintances with Mr. Daybell?
I would say friends.
Okay.
From acquaintances to friends. So.
And did Mr. Daybell move out of Springville at some point?
He did.
Do you remember when that was?
It seems like it was about 2015, thereabouts.
And did you maintain contact with Mr. Daybell after he moved away from Springville, Utah?
I did.
In 2019, did something happen to Mr. Daybell's family?
From what I've seen in the paper and everything is...
Actually, let me rephrase that question. Did Tammy Daybell pass away at some point?
Yes.
Okay. And I should have asked a better question there. Do you recall when that was?
In my recollection, it was in October of 2019.
Did you attend a memorial service for Tammy Daybell?
I did.
Where was that memorial service held?
It was held in the LDS Church in Springville, Utah, 9th East and 2nd North. So.
Do you remember what date that was?
I know I think it was a Monday. I don't remember the exact date.
And would that have been in October of 2019?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
At the memorial service for Tammy Daybell, did you have a conversation with Chad Daybell?
I did. During the visitation or the viewing part of it, I had a conversation with Chad specifically at that time.
Did he say anything to you, or did you discuss the way or reason that Tammy had passed away?
As I was going through the line, Chad and I have been very close. And when I got to him, he broke down crying. I broke down crying. We hugged each other, and he said something to the effect, she choked to death, and that's how she died. So.
Did Chad say anything else to you about things that happened around the time that Tammy died?
I can't remember whether there's specifically things he said. There are a lot of things that have been said over the years.
Sure. Can I ask you, let me ask you a little bit of a different question.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we don't get into any hearsay. Did you and Chad have a conversation about passwords?
We did.
Can you describe that conversation?
It took place, my recollection, it took place the Saturday after the funeral in Rexburg itself. I had children that lived in Rexburg, and we had made arrangements to have lunch with Chad. And so we met at the Hickory restaurant, and we went in and we had we were sitting there, and he talked about one of the miracles that had happened. And that was that shortly before, a week or so before Tammy passed away, that he found out or got all of the passwords that he had never been able to have before. Not that she didn't let him, he just was never part of knowing what the passwords were for their bank, for their computers, for those kind of things. And he said that just one of those miracles that happened, that now I got all the passwords before she passed away.
And he had gotten those passwords from Tammy?
I can't say that specifically, but he said that he obtained those passwords. I can't remember whether he said Tammy gave them to me or what. I don't recall that.
And was he specific on how soon before her death that happened?
It seemed like it was a week before. Again, I can't say specifically that it was but that's my recollection, is that it was a week before.
And that's what he was characterizing as a miracle.
Yes, because he'd never had them in the past. So,
Okay. If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
okay.
And I have no additional questions for this witness. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pryor, cross-examination.
Good morning.
You described that you and Chad are friends, good friends.
Yes,
In fact, when he moved from Springville to Rexburg, do you recall what year that was?
I think it was 2015.
Right. You continued that friendship and came to visit him somewhat regularly, correct?
We did. When we were in Idaho to visit our children in Rexburg, we stopped in and saw him and Tammy.
Now, I'm looking at a phrase that says bishopric secretary.
He is, when I was called as a bishop in my LDS ward,
Okay.
he was called as, I asked for him to be my executive secretary, which is, he would take care of all of my appointments, would be there when people were there. So we had two people present all the time. And he was very much a part of serving in the bishopric of the local congregation for me.
And in that regard, the two people who share that response, being a bishop in a LDS faith is a high honor.
I would say I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I would, it's one where you're responsible for a local congregation. And I said, so yes.
Okay.
So
And the relationship between the bishop of the ward and the bishopric, and I'm going to kill that word, bishopric secretary, that needs
the
to be
executive secretary.
executive. Thank you.
Okay.
Then I don't have to say that anymore.
So yeah. Okay.
The executive secretary, that's a significant relationship that has to occur, right?
It is. Yes.
And you're familiar with all of Chad's children, correct?
Very much. Yes.
You were aware about Mark going off on his mission, and you've spoken to Chad about that,
Yep. Yes.
about Emma, Leah, Seth. I'm forgetting one,
Garth.
Garth. Thank you.
Yes.
And when you're describing Chad's personality, since you know him so well, how would you describe him?
When I was associating with him when he was down in Springville, it was wonderful. I mean, he served in the Scouts with my children. He was very much involved in the local congregation. He was very much involved, a wonderful person. So,
Okay. And in terms of personality traits, how would you describe those personality traits?
It's sort of hard to differentiate the church side of it and the just the direct relationship. I think he was very driven with his writing. He was very driven with wanting to do things that would make sense to people. I know that he loved the writing. He loved being with the youth. He loved being with people. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that stands out to me.
And if you were to pick between someone who is humble or someone who's maybe a little ostentatious, which one would Chad better fit?
When we were down there, I
I'm
would
going to
say
object on relevance here.
Overruled.
when I knew Chad down there, I would say that he was fairly humble. So
Okay. Servant of the church,
yes,
someone who was wanting to serve in the capacity in your faith in a strong way.
yes.
Okay. Now, you talked about the passwords a little bit. You had been over to Chad's house a number of times, right?
I had.
And you were actually relatively close to Tammy as well, right?
Yes.
Were you aware that it was Tammy who did the finances and the organization of the company that they were running?
Yes.
And it was Tammy who was basically the driving force between running the publishing company, right?
I know that from a finance standpoint, that Tammy was the one that was very much involved.
Right.
And so,
And Chad was the, would it be fair to say that Chad was the artistic side? He was the one who wrote the books.
yes,
He was very passionate about a variety of different theories in his books, right?
that's correct.
And if you were to categorize Chad's books, would you say fiction or nonfiction?
Well, I would say they are nonfiction. It, I'll say it from, he, at the beginning of his books, he always said it was this is my opinions. This is nonfiction. He never presented the ones that I read of his as being facts. So,
Okay. And he enjoyed the passion of expression. Would that be fair?
yes,
And you would say that he, as an artist, he would elaborate, and he always liked the process of elaborating and discussing in a wide lens, different theories and ideas, right?
yeah, they were his theories that different than what some of the things that I thought, but yes,
But we can all agree that, it's everybody has different theories and ideas, especially when it comes to religion, right?
correct.
So if Tammy was running the finances, was she the one, was she solely responsible for the finances to your knowledge?
I don't know, to my knowledge.
Okay. But you do know that she was the one holding the purse book.
I know that Tammy, when a check was written, Tammy wrote the check.
Okay. So to discuss the idea of finances, that was a burden that was going to be placed upon Chad on the passing of Tammy. Would that be fair?
It would be.
Okay. And you mentioned when you were visiting with Chad that there was some expression of grief at the time of the memorial by Chad.
In the viewing, yes, very much.
And anything that he said to you, did you find that his expression of grief at that time was genuine?
Yes,
So you didn't have any perception that he was faking it or trying to pretend to be grief stricken about the loss of his wife. Is that right?
during the viewing, no, I did not.
And
So,
and again, you've known him for a long time.
yes,
That relationship was so close that you were, as part of your commitment to your religion and your faith, you were going to appoint him and have him work as the person closest to you to conduct your role as the bishop, right?
correct.
So you'd be a pretty good person to judge whether someone's faking it about grief or not faking it about grief. Would that be fair?
I don't know that I could say I'm a pretty good person. What I felt was genuine when
Okay.
with his.
And in knowing Chad for a significant period of time, you truly felt that he was expressing a genuine grief about the loss of his wife. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. I have nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
All right. All right, redirect.
Mr. Huff, you were asked about your beliefs regarding Chad's sincerity of emotion
Yes.
after the passing of his wife.
Yes.
Did you learn at some time after Tammy's passing that Chad had remarried?
Yes.
Were you surprised by that?
I was shocked by that.
And you had a conversation with Chad in that immediate aftermath where he described it as a miracle that he had obtained all of Tammy's passwords to the financial information about a week before she died.
That's
correct.
That's correct.
Based on that conversation and on Chad's subsequent remarriage and your history with him, do you still believe that his emotions were sincere at the time?
That's a hard question because I've loved Chad as a friend and want to feel that they were sincere. But there's always those questions that you have that were they sincere? Were they not sincere? And so that's one of those challenging ones. That question's hard to answer.
That's fine, sir.
So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. That will conclude then the testimony of Mr. Huff. And I believe he comes in as subpoenaed by the state. Is he released from the subpoena at this time, Ms. Beatty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Will he be
He's released from the defense as well. He don't need to come back.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Mr. Huff, thank you for testifying. You can go ahead and step down from the witness stand.